What you do in the day-to-day moments actually really matters, and what your habits are dictate whether you're heading towards and aligned towards that vision or if you're heading away from that. And one of the most important things, if your habits are not necessarily formed and there's a lot of resistance to doing something that you know is going to get you to the next level, to dive into what is that vision and who do you need to become for that vision to become effortless.
Welcome to Builders, the podcast for impact-driven leaders who are done carrying it all and ready to scale with clarity, strategy, and freedom. I'm your host, Alex Snyder, strategic growth architect, creator of the CEO Recode, and second brain to leaders who are building brilliant companies without sacrificing every ounce of their time, energy, or sanity. Each episode, I sit down with bold leaders who've rebuilt, recalibrated, or redefined what it means to lead well and live well on their own terms. We talk messy pivots, leadership upgrades, tactical wins, and the deep personal work it takes to build a business that actually works for you. If you love the episode, make sure you follow, rate, and share it with another leader who's building big and wants to build smarter. And if you're listening and thinking, damn, I need someone in the guts of my business with me, let's talk. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth and define 2 to 3 high-impact shifts you can implement now to regain traction and build momentum. Now, let's dive in. Let's build it better. Welcome, Jesse. Thank you so much for joining me on Builders, the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. You are very focused on agency owners, but I think the things that you do are so similar in certain ways to what I do. I think they're going to be exciting, applicable, and maybe even a little mind-blowing for some of our listeners. I think you've helped over 500 plus agency owners, if I'm not mistaken, to scale, sell, and just work in their businesses in the way that they want to through your unique process, Leverage for Growth. So I can't wait to dig in, but as always, I'm never going to do you justice. So if you could give us a quick introduction in your own words and really just tell us who you are and what you're building.
Yeah, totally. So I'm the founder of Niche and Control. Niche and Control is actually my 4th business. We'll probably talk about the 3 before and lessons learned with that. But Niche and Control is really designed to help marketing agency owners kind of get out of that founder trap of doing all the work themselves. We help them through the Leverage for Growth method, which is basically taking them from subject matter expert to trainer to manager to leader to visionary through implementation of systems. And we've worked with over 500 agencies. I've done 500 agency coaching calls, and then I also work in a mastermind and also a one-on-one basis for multi-million-dollar agencies.
Amazing. So I always like to kind of go back a little bit and look at this journey to becoming a builder. And as you said, you've had 4 companies. So you have led yourself through quite a lot of transitions, which I'm sure helps you lead others. Can you tell us a little bit about what shaped your leadership, what shaped you?
Yeah, totally. So as I said, Niche and Control is my 4th business. My first businesses were all based around my skills. The first business was actually, even before I get into businesses, like what actually started me on this journey is probably a good story to tell. When I was about 18 or so, I was studying a lot in psychology. I got into this thing called lucid dreaming. And in lucid dreaming, if people don't really know what that is, it's just when you become more conscious of your dream within the dream, and then you can kind of shape things. I had a question for my subconscious, which is how would I start a company with my brother? And in that dream, I saw different images, and I was labeling those different images. And in a very short period of time, when I woke up, I got called by an agency, an outsourced sales and marketing company that works with Fortune 500 companies in telecommunications, energy, and water. And those were the 3 words that came in from my dream. So I was like, oh, I should get this job. I went door to door for about a year and a half, talking to business owners. And every single time I talked with a business owner, I asked them, what's a ticket to a successful company? And I started taking notes. We're very similar, Alex, and learning and being able to apply those things. And I accumulated 17 80-page journals on notes from these business owners. And so when I started the company with my brother, called the North Coast Collective, my first business, I had a lot of like advice, I guess. And so I started to apply that because I wasn't going to college at that time. So I was just basing it off of experience. And in that first business, a lot of what I had been taught was that if you work hard, you'll eventually succeed. And that was definitely a lie. And that was one of the myths that I would say is something we can kind of unpack as one of the biggest takeaways. But I ran that business for a period of time, working 60, 80-hour weeks for years, got to a place where I was burnt out. And as the business was becoming more successful, I felt like I was dying inside. And the worst thing that a founder can ever go through is like losing the passion of the business that they started. It like crumbles the business. And so I went through 3 businesses just like that, and I didn't necessarily know what the problem was. All 3 of those businesses, the second one was a fine art photography business, the third one was a nonprofit, and each one of those was based around my skills. So as the business became more successful, I just worked more hours, and then it just sucked because I was actually after freedom. That was like my what I was sold into entrepreneurship for, and I couldn't necessarily figure it out until I sucked up my ego, went into corporate America. And during that period of time, for 5 years, I was removing what's called single points of failure within a $4 billion global corporation. And I realized from that moment that I was like, holy crap, this is the stuff that I really wish I would have known in my previous businesses, systems, leadership, and we'll talk about how I actually like navigated a lot of that leadership throughout this. But in that process, one of the business units from the $4 billion global corporation got acquired. And during that period of time, I was like, maybe this is my moment to kind of wrap it all together. What if everything was actually happening for me rather than against me? And what if what I was learning in corporate America and what I learned in entrepreneurship could be combined into a method and I could actually help people? So then I started niching control, worked with 3 different types of businesses, and then stumbled upon an agency, and then took that from $15,000 per month to $100,000 per month in 9 months. And then that became the method, and I kind of ran with it. I know I didn't answer the leadership question about that, but yeah, but I think it's good to understand the bigger picture because then we can dive into different pieces. Self-leadership actually came as part of that B2B knocking on doors experience, where I learned a lot about like John C. Maxwell and like other like leader influencers during that time. And I started to realize over a period of time that I had to lead myself before I could lead others. And I had to figure out a way of making it to where I had time. And I put myself before the business, which is an interesting thing that a lot of people kind of get stuck with not doing. And once I started to separate the business from me, and when the business is going through ups and downs, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going through up and downs, which is an interesting thing. Once that's separated, everything kind of changed. My outlook on what success is has changed. My focus on time freedom before financial freedom was another thing. There's a lot of different leadership lessons along the way.
I love that. I can't wait to dig into all of it. I want to come back. You said kind of uncoupling the ups and downs of the business from yourself, or just in general, putting yourself as a priority, actually I think, I don't want to paraphrase too hard, but like enabled the business to succeed more. Can you tell us more about that? Because I think that is a little or not well understood concept that can be misinterpreted, but I think is actually one of the secrets.
Yeah. It kind of, to kind of unpack that, it comes down to the use of time. So if you really get into the root cause of the issue, when people are too close to their work, they start to associate their identity with the work. And when you can start to carve out time to work on the business, it starts to naturally allow you to have boundaries. So one of the first things I do with clients is I get them to do a time log. It's like pulling teeth for a lot of people to just log every half an hour for 7 days. and once they do that, all of a sudden the awareness starts to shift where they can kind of feel like, Am I wasting time on certain things? Am I spending too much time with clients when I should be focused on more higher level kind of things? And that unpacking of the mindset of the use of time and having boundaries with the business allows you to actually have other goals. So one of the things that is really important is actually like you can have goals to grow the business to $10 million or $100 million or $1 billion or whatever it is, but you got to have goals in other areas. And it wasn't until I joined a group called Wake Up Warrior. And it's for men that are husbands and have kids and have a business. And it's called the trifecta of chaos. And how do you navigate, being able to do that? Yeah. And Garrett always talks about it, the coach there, always talks about it's in the right order. Body, like what are you doing with your health, and then being, or spirituality or significance or meaning in the world, and then balance, your family, your relationships with those closest to you, and then business. And I always had it in my first 3 businesses wrong, where I had the business first and I would just sacrifice everything and I would just hope that it eventually switches, which it didn't. And it wasn't until I started to focus on, waking up and just a very simple daily habit of, did I sweat today? Yes or no, right? And then I go, okay, from there, can I journal? What insights did I get from the run? I'm a runner, by the way. But so I think about like a certain intention, and then I'll journal about it. And then from that journal, what can I do as a daily deposit to put into my wife and my kids, and so that way their life is better because of me. And then when I get into business, I'm just focused. And once I started to make a change to having goals in other areas of my life, then there had to be a boundary with the business. And now, even as I'm building what I'm building right now, that's going to take us to the next level. I'm still working less than 40 hours a week. I'm still showing up as a good husband. I'm still showing up as a good father. And I think that when you have goals outside of it, naturally what happens is you have to prioritize certain things. So time management and time use is the biggest kind of unlock.
I love that. And yes, I think you and I are so aligned. I'm going to try and, make sure I dig in and ask questions, just because for me, I'm like, yes. This is so much of what I work on with my clients. So I thank you for expanding on that. And I think it's always helpful with like the personal example. I love the trifecta of chaos. It's dying. It's true, right? And I often joke that, people will say I bring order to chaos. And it's because it's helping you prioritize and understand how to action the priorities, right? It's great to say this is really important, but if your calendar doesn't reflect it, if then is it? Truly, and if it is truly, but you're not actioning it, then it creates that cognitive dissonance and it creates that constant stress and strain that I think is very common, to your point of like, we don't really understand where our time goes, but we always feel stressed and strained. I think that is really, really prevalent in this current moment in the world, whether you're a business owner, an employee. So I love that.
Yeah, I was going to piggyback on that because I think one of the most important things for all builders, all founders, is that they have a vision bigger than where they are right now. So if you're listening to this, and most likely you're not listening to builders if you don't want to build something big, right? so most likely I'm talking to 99% of the people that are on this podcast,
Like soothing radio voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about having a vision that's bigger than where you are currently, what you do in the day-to-day moments actually really matters, and what your habits are dictate whether you're heading towards and aligned towards that vision, or if you're heading away from that. And one of the most important things, if your habits are not necessarily formed and there's a lot of resistance to doing something that is going to get you to the next level, there's 2 main things that I'd have you consider. That time log, that's our 80-20 on like time management and getting people to actually like, once you do it, it kind of just frees you up a bit. And then also to dive into like, what is that vision, and who do you need to become for that vision to become effortless? Which means that you have to take on the habits that actually just are going to lead you there. And I've also realized, because I've been a part of like I can't even tell you how many coaching programs and whatever. It all boils down to actually I believe that every single person knows what the answer actually is, and then they're looking for validation outside of themselves. And I've noticed a lot that it has more to do with the mindset of the person than it has to do with like more knowledge. Right now we have access to ChatGPT and AI and like information overload. And it has more to do with starving distractions and focusing solely on the vision right in front of you. And then who do you need to become in the process for that vision to become effortless?
Yeah, 100%. I am, Atomic Habits is like the first book I give almost every client if they haven't already read it, which a lot of them have. But we really do speak to the identity, like who are you? What is that person that has achieved what you want do? What is, and who do they surround themselves with, right? So you said it's, a lot about the mindset. I also think it's a lot about we create echo chambers, whether we like it or not, right? But choose, choose the direction that you're being pulled. We're evolutionarily programmed to gravitate to the people around us and the norms, right? Like, yes, some people go against it, they break through, but the easiest way is to go with the flow. And so if you create your flow, then you create ease.
Yeah, I love it.
I like that. So tell me a little bit more, like, it sounds like you niche control, like it is and isn't based on your experience. Why this business? Why now? Like, you spoke a little bit about the moment in corporate with the acquisition happening and, seeing the pieces come together. But like, how did you know that you were meant to build businesses maybe originally and now?
Yeah. It's evolved over periods of time. So my vision in the way beginning was solely focused around owning a business with my brother. But I naturally have always been a nonconformist. so I can't stand the employee mindset. I can't stand like being told exactly what to do and having to follow it and so forth. So entrepreneurship naturally is just like embedded into me. The experience of like doing the 80-hour weeks and things like that actually came from seeing my dad go through that, and it burnout, and it kind of dissolved a lot of things. So I have like even like generational ties to freedom as being like a main thing. Niche and control, the method itself is tied to all of my experience. So it is the method itself is the ICP or ideal client persona, or the people that we work with right now. The best ones have just been marketing agency owners. If that ever were to switch where we start working with different groups and they get really good results, we just follow kind of what gets the best results based around the method. But when it comes to marketing agency owners and the way that we structured niche and control, it is solely based around client results. So we wouldn't actually have a business if it wasn't based around the results that we get for clients, because I don't own an agency. And originally in the way beginning, I actually thought that was like my kryptonite or whatever, like crap, I didn't own an agency because everybody wants me to own an agency. And then I realized it's actually my superpower, because I can turn off all of the random like things that would naturally, if I was in an agency, I would embrace the excuses that people have for certain things, but instead I just see right through it. So I would say that niche and control is based around my experience. It's just the ICP or the people that we work with. We don't have direct experience doing agency work, which actually is our benefit, because now we're just focused solely on client results.
I love that. And I think it makes total sense. I mean, marketing agencies are just by design challenging, right? I've had clients that are that. I've had not a marketing agency, but one of my companies was an agency model, super difficult in many ways, and challenges that are relevant to other industries or other business models, but definitely a compendium of challenges that do stack up to make it a very tough business to scale. So I'm wondering, between your experience and the fact that you are exposed to so many leaders, as you've grown through your journey, are there myths that you've had to unlearn or had the opportunity to rewrite around leadership, and whether that be, leading yourself through the journey, leading teams, leading clients?
Yeah. The leading yourself is really a big piece of it. What I even say in some of my events, so I've run like 50 some events with niche and controls solely. And one of the things I talk about is how leverage for growth and actually the expansion of self comes down to self-actualization and business expansion being directly related. Meaning, as you grow yourself internally, then naturally the business has, it's kind of like, it's like a lagging indicator for those that are geeky and stuff, but it ends up becoming a lagging indicator because if you focus on yourself and you keep on working on it, it's kind of amazing how there's like this ripple effect within the business. And so I think that one of the things that is the biggest myth that I had to unlearn was that working harder is going to define my success. So like if I work harder, then eventually it's going to work out and then I don't have to work hard. That's bullshit. That's actually just the I don't know if we swear on here, but yeah, okay. It's the employee mindset. It's the whole retirement kind of like thing. And ultimately, I want to build a business that I never want to retire from, and it's actually just part of who I am. But with self leadership, that's one big piece, and I think that understanding that you have to manage yourself, you have to kind of be trained as like a professional athlete, as an entrepreneur, in order for you to last the marathon of entrepreneurship. And I think that running marathons has actually been one of the ways of kind of training my own mindset to be in for the long haul. So I think there's some correlation there. Another myth that I would say, well, what's really interesting, so as I was developing the leverage for growth and we were getting into agencies, I started getting exposed to everybody else's agency growth programs. So, and then I was like, oh, this would be our quote unquote competitor or whatever. And as I like learn more about it, they have so much of this outside in approach to growth. So they're like, okay, get your leads and then get your sales and then your business grows and then you'll have freedom. And I just kept on saying, fuck that. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I've tried that in my previous businesses. It didn't work before. And I think one of the things that I've had to teach my agency clients to unlearn, which is one of those myths as well, is more of an inside out approach. So you focus on the inside, you fix your mindset, then your mindset, when it's aligned to a vision, then you focus on time and time use. And then once you start carving out time, then start building the systems. It just like it all, that's the leverage for growth method. It starts like that. So
you're speaking my language across everything you just said. I'm just here like nodding along. I'm like, go on. Okay.
You're like, yeah.
So I want to dig in a little bit to something you said, because this is something even for me, like in my branding, I've looked at, like the word freedom gets used so much. And for me, I've started to carve it in, and I definitely want your take on like, I look at it as like wealthy leadership is sort of like how I've started branding it in my group. Sure. But it's really success on your terms, I think, because I think freedom can mean so many things. And I realize sometimes people were like, well, I don't necessarily want time off. I love working. I love this. And I was like, yeah, but it's the freedom to, for me, like direct your time. So sometimes that will be, prioritizing your health. I think all the time it should be that. But, prioritizing your health, family, community. But like you might be in a place where you're like, I don't have a family, or right now, what I really want is just the freedom to work on the next project, the next company, the partnerships that will take us to the next growth, right? Like strategic type work. So I'm like always trying to define those words more. And I would love to know, either specifically, I think you talked about a little bit in your, body, etc. Priority list, but what does kind of freedom mean to you, or what does success on your terms, what I would call wealthy leadership, mean to you now? And has that changed over time? You've talked a little bit about that already, but like defining it seems like it's more intentional now.
Yeah, totally. So freedom, if you boil all down to freedom, is just the choice of doing whatever you want to do. So some people think that because of the marketing messages that are the loudest right now, that freedom means that you're going to live on a beach and do nothing. That's not exactly what everybody is after. And so when you start to unpack freedom, I think that Dan Sullivan, who's like the strategic coach, actually has a really good way of breaking it down, which is freedom is broken into 4 different categories. You have time freedom, You have financial freedom, you have relationship freedom, so being able to have the freedom of choosing your relationships and being specific with that, and then also based around your purpose, the freedom of purpose and meaning in people's lives. And I think that one of the things that most people get wrong when it comes to freedom is that they think that financial freedom comes before time freedom. And it's one of the biggest blockers for people, because they think that I have to get a 7-figure agency or business or whatever in order for me to, have the time freedom. And it's actually the exact opposite. And again, whenever I use the word freedom, just choice, just the choice of being able to use your time however you want to use it. Okay. And so one of the things that we do based around the freedom aspect is focus on time freedom first, then financial freedom, then it just leads towards everything else, because when you have funding, you can fund your purpose and your relationships and be around all those people. So that's the freedom side. The other side, which is defining success, I believe that every single person needs to make that decision for themselves. There's too many times where they just take on other people's definitions of success, and then there's kind of this weird gap between where they are and where they want to go, and there's not really a path there, and then there's just like endless suffering. So I think people need to get out of that like taking other people's definition of success as their own without like a full analysis, conscious decision of what that success is. For me, in my first, you want to?
No, go for it.
Okay. For my first businesses, it was that. So I would not duplicate what I did in my previous businesses for anybody. And I see that more and more as I talk with more founders, that they're just kind of stuck in this, like, when I have financial freedom, I'll eventually have time freedom. In this business, it's different than my other businesses because I'm also married. I have 3 kids. I have a puppy now, so, and then I work less than 40 hours a week. Right. And, so my definition of success originally was, to create more time freedom in my life. And what I noticed, and maybe this is actually another thing that kind of leads towards my own journey of what my definition of success is. In the beginning of Niche and Control, I was just a one-on-one coach. And for anybody that's a one-on-one coach listening, it's okay, but I was a one-on-one coach, and I got to a place where, in 2022, I sold out of coaching spots, but I basically was owning a job. And I was making more money than I ever made in my life, but I'm like, holy crap, like I'm just kind of stuck, right? And I believe in God, I believe in faith, and I believe in dreams. And I had a dream that I would impact 1 million entrepreneurs. And that was at the time where I had full spots in 101. I'm like, am I really going to work with 15 people? And like, how am I going to, do that? And so my vision became a lot bigger in 2022. And in 2023, I wrote my book. I did my podcast. I did all these different things because I believe that the vision is that I'm impacting 1 million entrepreneurs. And right now, what that means is being on podcasts with Alex and builders. And, so my definition of success is really just that impact. We also, what's called a wildly important goal for Niche and Control is literally just case studies. Like, revenue is going to come from just us serving people in a really powerful way to where they tell other people how transformative it is, and then it kind of changes. So that's what we're focused on. That's what our definition of success is for me personally, and then also what the business is.
I love that. For those listening, we'll make sure to link the book, but what's it called?
The Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom.
Love it. Very clear title. Like it. So I'm curious, you've talked about how this has changed over time, how your leadership has changed over time. I'm a big believer that, leadership is predominantly built, not born. And we form it often through emulation, respect and admiration. Are there people along the way who have shaped kind of your perspective, or is this really been like trial and error within the realm of your own experience?
Yeah, I'd say both. The trial and error, the reflection exercises that I went through to figure out everything that we just talked about was a catalyst was Wake Up Warrior and Coach Garrett J. White. And he was teaching me the body being balance in business and how to do that on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a quarterly and a yearly basis. And once I started understanding that I have to get into habits that kind of fill me up, that was a big change. Once I started doing that, I was doing it in corporate, and then I was like, I like it kind of freed me up to start thinking about entrepreneurship again. So I would give kudos to Wake Up Warrior and Coach Garrett. Aside from that, I've read over 500 business books. So I'm one of my strengths finders, like the third one is learner. So I'm like constantly learning all the time. But a lot of it has to do with reflection. And I journal every single night and every single morning. And I'm always thinking about like reflection, like what did I learn today and how can I be better tomorrow? And I just do that over and over and over and over and over again. So yeah.
I love that. It's kind of a 1% better every day approach really accrues. The other thing that I often think about is the role of failure. The reality as humans, animals learn through trial and error. What do you think, how do you think failure or regrets or maybe just hard lessons have factored into you arriving at what sounds like you are very much living your version of success in, a way that feels fulfilling and aligned for you?
I always tell my kids and my clients as well, that there's never really a failure if you never quit. And either you're succeeding or you're learning. And the times where you experience the hardest lessons. So I'll take you back actually. Be vulnerable, in 2023, at the time where I was starting the book, The Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom, and then launching the Leverage for Growth podcast, I was switching models from that one-on-one coaching kind of model that was based around me to more of like a mastermind kind of group coaching model. And I was overly confident in the ability of scaling something, and there are two different business models by any means. So there was a time where, as I was getting ready for my third kid to be born in June of 2023, there was 3 months where I lost 60K, like just boom, 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 one after another. And I was like, holy crap, dude. And in that time, I had to scale down like a lot, just like because I was losing it. And in those times, I was tested. I was tested in my faith of the vision. I was tested in the ability to communicate really hard things to a wife and the kids and still be able to show up in the midst of those changes. And it wasn't until about a year and a half later, which is kind of closer to like at the time of recording. And it wasn't until I started realizing what the actual gift from that was. And now when I deal with agencies that are getting disrupted by AI and they're having to scale down in order for them to reposition and kind of figure out, okay, what is the future of agency space? I now have, and I had in my previous businesses, but I now have it a lot more relevant and recent that I've had to do that experience. So I can speak from experience. So those failures, quote unquote, or the lessons or the hard like slap in the face, like the world is working against you. It's actually working for you. You just can't see it at this moment. Those kinds of experiences have allowed me to show up powerfully for my wife, to show up powerfully for my kids, to show up powerfully for myself, and still have like self-love and, faith and, all these like really important things to be able to show up for my clients in a powerful way too. So I would say that every single thing, if you feel as though right now you're going through some shit, okay, I always say that there's a gift in the shit. So when you're dealing with it, yeah, you can use that, Alex, if you want to. But in the hard lessons that you might be going through right now, I guarantee that there is a reason for it. And either you think that you have what's called an external locus of control where everything is happening to you and you don't have control over it, or you have an internal locus of control where you're focused on everything is actually happening for me, even if I can't see it right now. If you have that awareness to be able to put yourself in one of those categories, the internal locus of control allows you to start to look at everything that's happening for you. Like everything is happening for you, and you're able to learn a lot more from it as opposed to blaming all these other things. And so that's what I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, I love how you frame that. I love that you brought in internal, external locus of control. I'm also a psychology, neurobiology geek. So I have actually asked a guest about specifically that in the past. And I just want, for anyone listening, I really want to take a moment to highlight that because I think it really is the game changer. And it's not innate or stable. Like you can fluctuate. I am an internal locus of control person, but I've had moments where it's slipped, where I've felt more in an external locus of control. And I will tell you, those are probably the lowest times in my life where I felt like things are happening to me, where I haven't felt like, okay, how do I change this? I've been more in a like, like what's happening, or how could somebody come just save me from this? And it's, I would say doubly, as someone who is such an internal locus of control, it was doubly, difficult because I also had a lot of self-loathing about that, even having that thought in that moment. Like, who am I that I'm even thinking like, oh, I wish someone would just sort this out for me. But I do just want to highlight that, we do have a lot of builders. We have people in all different stages of their journey. I think that's a key, and I believe it is something that you can foster, hone, cultivate. And if it slips, it's okay. Like you're not forever changed and lost.
Yeah, I would view it for anybody that's dealing with that right now, or even with Alex, if you ever find that you're off the wagon with it, just view it in the same way that you would view meditation. So if you're meditating or breathing and you're focusing on the breath, and then thoughts start going away, and then you're like, oh crap. Instead of beating yourself up for the fact that you're like not meditating anymore or whatever, you just bring yourself back to the center. Same exact thing with this.
Yeah, I love that. So if you were to think back, we've talked a lot about the journey. Is there something that you wish you'd known when you were maybe scaling your first business? Or is there a key moment where you're like, oh, wow, if I had understood this, that really would have unlocked something or accelerated something for me?
The thing that's coming for me that's different than everything else that we've talked about so far is actually the proof of concept stage within a business. So if you are in the way beginning of starting something new, or you're taking a new offer or something, right? You got to get that offer in front of people as early as humanly possible. Our first business, we fell in love with the idea. We went through a proof of concept stage that lasted way too long. And the reason why we started working at 80 plus hours or so is because we hadn't gotten validation in the market for some of the things that we were doing. And it just kept on building without validation in the market. And I would say one of the best things you can do is just fall in love with a minimum viable draft or minimum viable product of whatever you're trying to create, and immediately get feedback. Get feedback from 5 people of your ideal client persona people. Give them some gift or whatever. Get the feedback from them. Revise whatever it is. Find another 5 people. Revise it again. Find another 5 people, and then go back to all 15 of them with whatever you came up with and give them some discount. That is like the fastest, easiest way of getting a proof of concept out. If we would have gotten a proof of concept out, we would have not had to deal with the 60 plus hours. We would have validated a lot of things early and not have to have so much what's called rework in the process, which actually was a big catalyst to the whole thing.
I love that. Such a concrete example, and I wholeheartedly agree. Like, test feedback. The way that you build, like if you are not an agency owner, I'm going to give an example of how this works. I have people come to me all the time, like, I want to build an app. I'm like, okay, are people paying you for the solution already? They're like, no, I want to build an app. I want to do, I'm like, do you know what it takes to build an app? You know how expensive it is? I'm like, why don't you create a service? And then once enough people pay you for the service, start layering tech, build a website, and then wrap it into an app. Like, get it out there and get feedback, make money from it, prove that it is, proof of concept. That's where it comes from, right? Make sure that people want it, because the trap of entrepreneurship, and there are probably no less than 1,000 books about this, is falling in love with an idea rather than deriving a solution to a widespread problem that is painful enough for people who can afford to pay to have it resolved for them. Right. And like, that is really the formula. And then when I look at so many of the things, projects I've been part of, or you look at some of the biggest
apps that are out there now, they are not what they were when they came out. They have evolved through feedback, and that is why they're so successful. But had those founders sat on them, they never would have become what they are today, first of all. Yeah. And they probably never would have even made it out because they would have just run out of time and money. So I think, really, really love that perspective. And I think if anyone is listening and you're sitting on something, myself included, my next product is, I've said Q4, I got to get it out in front and start testing it.
Yeah.
It's time. Yeah. I love it. So let's talk a little bit more about agency owners, because this is what you do. You talk about, the blueprint for scale, and you mentioned this earlier, actually. I think you said, agency owners struggling to scale, they believe that leads are the problem, but leads are not the problem. So what is the problem? You've alluded to it, but what is really the root of the inability to scale?
Sure. So if we get to understand the journey of an agency owner, it'll be really helpful to understand the transformation that they have to go through. We'll boil it all down into three main problems, three main solutions, and then what the actual solution is as opposed to leads. So if you think about an agency owner, in their current state, they're like an operator, an expert, a person that knows everything. Everything's in their head. As they take on more clients, it increases their personal hours, okay? And then if you think about a CEO is exactly the opposite. The CEO is more focused around leadership, systems, people, and then operating the business, okay? So you have these two states, current state or undesirable state to a desirable state, okay? If you boil it all down into the actual issues that hold people back from going from one undesirable state to a desirable state, there are three main ones: an unscalable business, inconsistent lead flow and clients, and then micromanaging a team, okay? And if you break all three of those down into the actual sub-outcomes that make it work, a scalable business is based around time controlled, that time log we were talking about just a second ago, systems optimized, being able to take everything out of their head, put them into systems and procedures so that way other people can do the work at the same or better quality of you. And then the third one is based around a scalable offer. Now, a scalable offer, it does not necessarily mean that it's like an app, right? We're like, you were just talking about a second ago. It's the ability of leaning into all the different services that you offer. There is most likely something that you're doing right now. Out of the 10 different things, there's probably 2 things that get the clients 80% of the results. And if you just focus on what's called a minimum viable solution, otherwise known as a scalable offer, what you're able to do is you're able to deliver great results for clients with the least amount of effort on your end. And if you price it according to value, that's really where the main thing is. And so when we think about leads, and the issue that agency owners have is that they fall for all these other agency growth programs because they're the loudest. I'm probably like the not loudest, but and they're all about leads because they're focused on external. And what I've seen so many times is that marketing agency owners who know how to grow businesses start to focus on leads, and then all of a sudden they're working 60, 80-hour weeks. They don't know how to fix it, and it's the same crap, okay? So you have to figure out the scalability piece. Now, if you're just starting off, you have to go through the proof of concept stage. So I'm talking about people on the other side of a proof of concept stage within their agency. That's really important because the strategy only works if you've already worked with clients and you're already getting them results. And then it's based around figuring out, which clients are getting the best results, what's most profitable, and so forth. When you figure that out, that scalable offer, it gives you all the information and the focus that's needed for consistent revenue, which has to do with consistent revenue from activating a referral program. So a lot of times it's passive. You got to make it active, which means a lot of social proof. And then using that social proof as being kind of like the thing that you're using in inbound and outbound systems. I could go way farther into that, but the actual issue is that if the agency owner focuses on leads but not scalability, they'll turn marketing on and then turn it off. And they'll turn it on and then turn it off. And it creates a growth plateau. So scalability is actually the number one thing. And the root of it has to do with time controlled, getting everything out of your head, and then the scalable offer.
Is there one of those that you see is the biggest roadblock, that is like where people tend to struggle the most?
It's funny. It literally is in that order. So if right now you're not working 68-hour weeks, time control is not really that big of an issue, right? If right now, as you take on more clients, it increases your hours, but right now you're at kind of like a comfortable stage where you're not working too much, then it is the operations. I think it's more diagnostic, based around kind of where people are. But the biggest catalyst to everything is the scalable offer, because sometimes you can't actually gain control of your time based around how you've packaged your actual service. And a lot of them are based on really old models like hourly models or cost plus models, which are just a race to the fucking bottom. So, and you can't scale it. Like it doesn't make any sense. And I could probably go on like a rant about the offers and that it's not according to value and it's based around effort and it just sucks. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking, what do you really believe is vital for entrepreneurs and founders and executives to really understand about agency models for responsible scaling? So, if you want to go off on that tangent,
sure, yeah,
this is your moment.
Yeah, here's my moment. All right, so if you think about what's happening in the agency space, AI is coming in, disrupting everything, and then people are wondering, do you actually need an agency? Okay. This has actually been building up for years, even before I started to, and not the AI side, but just what happens with agencies. They're being split into two different groups, okay? Agencies in the future are going to be very strategic, okay? They're not going to focus so much on execution. That strategy is worth every single penny, okay? When it comes to, and if you're really good, a lot of my clients, I screen the crap out of them because I want to make sure they're in that category where we can just keep on going higher and higher and higher when it comes to worth and value and so forth. On the other side is the economies of scale, the extremely productized, serving the average type of agencies, which are not going to be in the US or UK. They're just going to be in other countries based around something way outside of our control, like currency, right? So if you think about those two things, you, as an agency owner, you have two choices. Are you going to go the low cost and compete with people that have different currencies that you can't really beat? Or are you going to focus more on what is that core competency? What is that specialty that you are focused on that you can charge a decent amount of money for? And I think that when you make that choice, if you make the choice towards strategy, you have to specialize in the thing that makes the biggest difference. And so that scalable offer, the thing I'm talking about right now, is literally the number one thing that agency owners need to apply for themselves in 2025, 2026, and pretty much beyond, because it is the catalyst for understanding how you position yourself in a market that's changing, and you have to position yourself as high value. If you don't, you're just going to get wiped out. And I see this so much. All of my clients that are really freaking good at what they do, they're going up market. They're just going from small businesses to medium size, or if they're medium, they're going to enterprise. And the role of an agency is never going to go away because everybody with AI is just serving the average. And there's always going to be outliers that are outside of it that will pay so much money if you know what the fuck you're doing. So it's really, really important. So that scalable offer is huge. I'm actually creating the Scalable Agency Accelerator, which actually solves this problem for agencies, and it'll be out. We're going to have a launch event probably a couple weeks after this one gets launched, or this podcast gets launched, and then we'll have the product available for agencies beyond that.
Amazing. Yeah. So that's super exciting. This is kind of sounds like it's your scalable product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. I'm figuring out how to serve 1 million entrepreneurs. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
I love it. Is there a way that you're able to keep track of that? Because it seems like between, what you're offering to your clients directly and then how they serve their own clients, how they mastermind your book. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would imagine that it's difficult, but do you have a sense of kind of like the reach that you're at or that you're going to be at in the next year with this exciting new offer?
Yeah. So I'm moving into a new system that's going to centralize everything. Our events, the book sales, everything. It was originally in different systems. We're all moving it into what's called Entreport. And that should be able to give us a very specific number. But based around taking all the different data so far, I'm up to 20,000. So, wow. Yeah. So
amazing start. I can only imagine it's going to keep amplifying.
Yeah. I'm super excited about it.
Amazing. Well, Jesse, I think we've covered so much good stuff. You've got the new program coming, which we'll make sure that we, update show notes and links and anything we're sending out the best that we can to make it so easy for people to find you. If they do want to find you, work with you, we've kind of mentioned them across the show and the conversation, but what are the best ways to connect or learn from you?
Totally. I'm most active on LinkedIn, just Jesse P. Gilmore. You can friend request me and we'll have a chat. But aside from the social media, if you want to learn more about Niche and Control, www.nicheandcontrol.com. We'll have everything, even when we have like the launch event and the Scalable Agency Accelerator, it'll all come through that website. So that's probably the easiest way to do any type of redirection. If you want to talk to me directly, LinkedIn. If you want to learn more about us, nicheandcontrol.com.
Love it. We'll make sure that's all linked. So we like to close out every episode with a couple rapid fire questions. Sweet. You can give us a word, a phrase, whatever works for you. You can absolutely pass. Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah, I'm down.
Amazing. All right. So the first question is, what's one decision that changed everything for you as a leader?
Letting go of one-on-one coaching as being the main thing and switching towards a group.
What does strategy feel like when you're doing it right?
Alignment.
Ooh. Is there a book, a podcast, or a person that really cracked something open for you?
Wake Up Warrior and Coach Garrett J. White.
Incredible. What's something you've said never again to in your business?
Ooh, that's a good one. Never again am I going to teach something that I'm not doing myself. So let me break that down for a second. One-on-one coaching, if you realize with one-on-one coaching, I'm literally not applying leverage for growth now that I'm in a business and I'm doing it as a business as opposed to a quote unquote service provider. Now I'm applying leverage for growth, which is the transformation we talked about.
Love it. We got to drink our own Kool-Aid,
Yeah.
If you had a free weekend and zero obligations, how would you spend it?
Ooh, free weekend. Could it be longer than a weekend?
Go for it.
Awesome. I would love to take my family to Scotland. I studied abroad there. I've been there 4 times. I have ancestors originating there from Craigsmillar Castle and stuff like that. But yeah, I want to take. I took Maverick, my son, but I haven't taken the other 2. So, taking my whole family there.
Amazing. That sounds like an incredible adventure, just like entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse, thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing. There's so much that we covered, so I'm sure people are going to get a lot of value, and would love to have you back, maybe next year once you've got the new business, this more scalable, more leverage model. Really can't wait to hear how that's going. So thank you so much.
That's a wrap for this episode of Builders, where we get real about what it actually takes to grow companies that perform without grinding you into the ground. If today's convo sparks something for you, here's what to do next. Follow the show, drop a 5-star review, and share it with someone else who's building big. Don't let it be lonely at the top. If you're ready for more clarity, more leadership freedom, and less of a duct tape and go growth vibe, let's connect. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth. Walk away with a personalized fix-it list that gives you the clarity you've been craving on what to shift now to regain traction and build momentum. For more tools, insights, and my no-fluff takes on leadership and scaling strategically, join the Builders Club, also linked in the show notes. You can also head over to leaderswhobuild.com, where you'll find all the links to Pete My Creds, see client wins, or just confirm that yes, I went to the gym today. Until next time, keep leading boldly, building smart, and living success on your terms.